Hello and welcome back to my show. I hope you're all well. Let's get to some news now. We need to focus now and understand that inflation is everywhere. Even like George Gammon, I was watching an interview he had with Lynn Aldman, who is a financial strategist, and he went into explaining how he went to a restaurant. You know how you normally wait for 10 minutes, right, to be seated and to get your meal. A little more for your meal, of course, yeah. But he said that he waited 2 hours, and how in another situation he waited. He had to wait 45 minutes to get an Uber, which normally is 5 minutes waiting time. So inflation's in the air. That is a decline, an example of a decline in products and services where everybody's affected, no matter if you're a millionaire or anyone. We're all affected in some way. Am I right? We could have the money, but if the product and services are not there, we all suffer, right? So he has said also that he was waiting for the Uber to go get a COVID test so he could get that underway so he could go to Puerto Rico. And he said that I had to walk 4 miles. And once I got there, because you know how the drive-through, they told him, since you're walking, we can't give you the test. And he said, oh, I'll just walk to the drive-through. He's like, no. They told him, no, you can't do the COVID test because of that. So I don't know what happened at that point on, but this decline or decrease, this supply chain shortages is affecting all of us. Okay, so let's get on to the next thing. So Lynn Aldman has said, what you want to do is, if you want, you know how they say that the economy's booming, it's flourishing, there's greener grass on the other side. Well, she said, and he as well, George Gammon and Lynn Aldman, a team, they said that, well, there are sectors that are flourishing. When we were in a shutdown mode during COVID, you could just simply go to Amazon or Walmart. They were surviving and thriving before COVID and after COVID and now. And they continue to, right? They weren't suffering. So those sectors, those retail sectors were blooming or booming, right? Unlike the service sectors, the restaurants, they were suffering. Remember how I told you that a whopping 4 million restaurant or establishments or businesses, better to say that, were permanently wiped out. That's so sad. And then how they say that we were booming. Of course, during the time of the shutdown, there were disruptions in sectors like the energy sector. People weren't driving, they weren't flying, and there was many jobs lost in those industries, like the service sectors included. So that disruption may have shown that there was lowest GDP in economic history. That's what they said, right? And then they said that, well, like I told you, it depends on the market, right? The sector. So we already finished that. And the fact that another reason why they might have said it was blooming is because of the stimulus checks, okay? People were going and doing shopping, cha-ching. Yeah. So that also made the trend line do very well, is what Lynn Aldman says. So when there's supply decreasing, it affects us all. It sure does, people. So everywhere, everyone will be impacted in some way by the supply chain shortage, because you could be doing well financially, but if the product and services aren't there, your money does not do anything for you. So let's get off that and go to another one, where they said another sector that was impacted was the car sector and Bitcoin equipment, where they said that because cars are dependent on semiconductors or high-end semiconductors from Taiwan and South Korea, they had, quote, what she said, a limited boundary capacity where they could not take any more. So there was a slowdown or a supply shortage. And because they were maxed out on their end, because of the influx of demand of consumers wanting electronic products. Okay. So Lynn Aldman said, well, George Gammon said, so how does this all impact inflation? Well, Lynn Altman said this is, quote, increased efficiency of supply chains, which came with a cost called increased fragility, and outsourcing, which the United States have been doing for so many years now, where they take high-end, high-quality, blue-collar jobs and they send them off to China where they get paid 10th as much. Yeah. So it's globalization is not accelerating like it used to. That's another thing she noted and she wanted to tell us about. And she said we got to take a look at the broad money supply. That's checking accounts, savings accounts, currency, circulation. And she said that, quote, Lynn Altman, we've had the sharpest rise since World War II. Historically, she said broad money supply is correlated with consumer price increases, which is what we're seeing, right? Now tell me what's happening in your neck of the woods. Are you guys seeing the same thing as what George Gammon experienced, from the 45-minute wait time for Uber to the, what else did he say, the 2-hour wait time in the restaurant, or not being able to get a vaccine or a COVID test because you came walking instead of riding in your car? And Lynn Altman has said that she bought a mattress and she had to get it replaced. She bought it last year. And she said that this year it was 20% higher than it was last year. So there's inflation for you. So, and she said that there's people get confused with inflation, but today we're going to focus and define inflation. She said if you get a sharp rise in broad money supply, that's called monetary inflation. And that causes what prices of goods to go up? That would be whatever is scarce, is financial assets, where you put your money in or store it, like stocks, gold, fine wine, high-end real estate, investment, Bitcoin, wherever people want to store their money, basically, okay? And she said that's where, quote, bid up in prices will occur, where those assets will start to shoot up or surge, okay? And then she talked about commodity shortages, that's wages, consumer income, a broad rise in wages, consumer income, and consumer income could include stimulus, which people, were taken advantage of by buying and purchasing things, and where more people would want to spend more, like I said, and the demand with a tight supply would get you an increase in consumer prices, what we talked about already, right? Which is what we're seeing. So Lynn Altman said it's very well. She said we get it. This is how we get a feel for inflation. She said the inflation spikes we see is because you're chasing this shortage of goods with a decent amount of money to buy them. People are willing to pay a higher price for things they really want. And then we went into M2 supply, which is up because income is up higher due to stimulus. We talked about that a little bit. And another way to look at it is the CPI. Lynn Altman says how they calculate rent or owner's type of rent equivalent. We've seen a decline in rents with consumer prices, moratoriums, yes. And she went into how the government will, what would they do with all this QE and all this mess? Well, she said that they'll increase taxes on capital gain taxes. That could be like on gold, those kind of things, right? If you try to pull out early, they'll heavily tax you on capital gains taxes, or the government will try to reduce stimulus. Okay. So then what do we do in that case? What is our, how do we get an edge? How do we get ahead of the game? Well, Lynn Altman said we shouldn't necessarily worry about inflation. We should monitor it, but that should not be our main focus. We should focus on diversifying our wealth. And she said to look into equity markets or sectors. What's overvalued, what's undervalued, what's cheap. Buy what's cheap. And then she also said look at commodities. What is out of favor, meaning what are people not looking at that you need to look into? What's oversold? You have gold, copper, silver, Bitcoin, real estate markets. I think she's talking about like gold mining stocks. I could be wrong. But yeah, so that's what she said to do. That's what Gammon, they both did. I think they had some very rich and good information and insight on that. So I hope that I did them justice here in my video. So I want to say again, thank you for watching. Be blessed, be safe, diversify. Now, everybody's situation is independent, is unique. Like my situation might not be like your situation, right? Like, what is his name? George Gammon. He says, I pulled out of the United States. I'm in Puerto Rico. I'm investing in different places, Colombia. So those are things also we might want to look into. If you're able to get out of the U.S., investigate that, look into it, because there could be some good opportunities out there abroad where we're not so strict. There's not so many restrictive measures. Because they also mentioned, I want to talk about Florida, that even though they lifted the mask measure, he said that I walked into this place and I grabbed something with my hand, and one lady just went bonkers. She turned crazy, and I've been seeing that as well. He said, even though you lifted it, they're still requiring you to have masks. So, and that's in Florida. He said, I'm in Florida right now. That's what he said. Okay, that's enough for now. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And we'll see you in my next video. Be blessed, be safe, and keep watching.